What's going on, you guys? Welcome to the DreArea Sports Show as we are cross-streaming this bitch over on 49ers First Takes. I'm joined by Aaron. What's going on, Aaron?
Not much, man. This is something different for me. I'm always doing the night stream, so I
I
actually
know,
got
right?
I got natural daylight in the background, which is
Natural
nice.
daylight, along with the your dual lightsabers in the background. I love it.
Yes, but I got Ahsoka Tano's lightsabers in the background, and I decided to desit them. Yeah, the red looks really weird in the middle of the day. Like at night, it looks pretty cool, but it doesn't look good
Yeah,
during
I
the
was
day.
gonna say at night you can see it like, I was like,
Yeah.
whoa. So, guys, today we're going to be talking about, of course, none other than the San Francisco 49ers and some of the headlines that have been surrounding the team. Now, one of the things I want to talk about was the quarterback play of both Jordan Love and Justin Herbert and Sam Darnold. Now, these three quarterbacks have been compared to Brock Purdy pretty much all season long. And so I find it ironic that all three of them went out there and all three of them played like shit. Now, you could argue that Jordan Love had a lot of injuries on his team on the Packers, and they were playing against arguably the best defense in the league. According to Fox Sports, they're ranked at number 1 in total defense, which is the Philadelphia Eagles. So he had a hard time. Now, people will always say, well, if the quarterback has the abilities, the quarterback can make things happen. But we saw, even though Jordan Love has the abilities in sense of he's athletic, he's got a strong arm, all of that, he wasn't able to get it done as he looked, in my opinion, terrible against the Philadelphia Eagles. Justin Herbert, he didn't fare too much better. I want to say he had 4 interceptions against the who was it against? I'm blanking right now.
Was that
Who the Chargers played?
the Chargers played the Texans?
Yeah, the Texans. He looked awful in that game as well. Then, of course, you have Sam Darnold, the guy who was directly compared to Brock Purdy. I mean, he was his backup for crying out loud last year. Sam Darnold went out there, was 25 of 40 for 245 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and he was sacked, I believe, 9 times. Which is like, I mean, come on. He also had a fumble that led to a touchdown. So, Aaron, let me ask you, based on what we saw off of these quarterbacks, is the price for Brock Purdy going up, or is it staying exactly where it was going to be at regardless?
I think it's going to stay where it was. I don't think there was going to be a massive change based on the outcome of these games. I think the outcome of these games isn't really moving the needle when it comes to the price. I think the outcome of these games really did well to kind of flip the narrative of all these other quarterbacks that people suddenly rank above Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is never afforded the caveats that a lot of these guys that you just mentioned in the beginning, a caveat of, well, some players were injured and this, that, and the other. Like Brock Purdy has been lambasted and crushed for the season he had, and rightfully so. He played poorly, but I felt these games, at least for people who consume content like we do, and people that watch other channels who kind of take their info from people that have, massive followings and look at Brock as below Sam Darnold or below Justin Herbert or below Jordan Love. I feel like that narrative after Sunday's game, at least in some people's eyes, has flipped, considering Brock has a 4-2 playoff record and a Super Bowl appearance and had an incredible comeback win last year in the NFC Championship game that a lot of people forget. So money-wise, I think it has no effect. I think Brock is going to get what he's going to get. But when it comes to the narrative, at least in some places, maybe that thing has switched where Brock looks better and the other guys look worse. But I'm sure if you go on people's X or YouTube or whatever platform that they put content on, I'm sure if they're dead set on their opinion, that they'll probably stay the course regardless of how bad these quarterbacks played.
No, and look, there are other content creators out there that will stay steadfast on their opinion on Brock Purdy. And that's fine. That's what they're going to do, and that's what they do. And look, I would say I don't want to say every channel, but most channels out there will run off a narrative. That's just kind of how they do their thing, and that's it's like that in every genre.
Yep.
But to say that these quarterbacks are better than Brock Purdy, you have to look at the entire package. You can't just say, okay, well, they don't have the rocket arm, or they don't have, these certain talents that this quarterback has, right? I made the comparison the other day that in Top Gun Maverick, that is, they said a line of, it's not about the plane, it's about the pilot. And so to me, when you have a guy in Brock Purdy that has the processing ability, the mental ability to play the quarterback position at a high level, and also have natural born talent, maybe not as much talent as some of these other guys, like a Josh Allen, who's like, 6'5", has a rocket arm. That guy's like a superhero. Yep. But I think that Brock Purdy, what he's been able to accomplish compared to everybody else within his market, his market value will dictate how much he's expected to receive. Now, if you look at who's out there and who he's compared to, you're looking at Jordan Love. You're looking at Justin Herbert. You're looking at Dak Prescott. I guess Sam Darnold, but not really. But we'll get to that in just a few minutes. But because of that, to me, based on his accomplishments and what he's been able to do, being the last pick in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant, yes, he absolutely will earn a fat bag this next offseason. I would imagine that the Niners are going to make this deal happen sooner rather than later. And I think as soon as the season's over, if not before that, they're going to get this deal done because they don't want this shit to linger on. I'm predicting that it's going to be somewhere between 6 and 7 years. And the reason why is because I don't want to say how much the overall price is going to be. I mean, I would assume it's going to be 50 to 55 million a year. But my thing is this. You don't want to sign a guy to a 4-year deal. Why? Because in 2 years you're going to have to work out a new extension for him as it is. Because you're going to backload the contract every year. He's going to get more and more and more expensive, right? So what do you do to offset that? You give him more years so that for the next 4 years you can remain pretty competitive and be able to acquire players and keep this team rolling. Now, once you get past that 4th year, and then you start worrying about, okay, let's restructure. Let's turn some of this into a signing bonus. Let's turn some of this into things that don't affect the salary cap. And so because of that, that's why I think he's going to get somewhere between a 6 and 7 year deal because they want to extend out the longevity of his contract. But there is some, there is some things to worry about when it comes to Brock Purdy. Obviously, his elbow injury is just something that's going to linger on, season after season. Now, I do feel like this season he was relied on a lot more. But if you look at the attempts per year, he only has, I forgot the exact number, but it's not that much more than what he did last year. But last year he had more yards because, I think guys were just more open because he had more talent around him. Benali writes 262 for 7 years. Yeah, that could easily be what we're looking at here. And the Niners have already made room for this contract in their budget. So it makes sense that they're going to get this done fairly quickly. Aaron, what do you think? Do you think this will be done sooner rather than later, or do you think this will linger on? Sort of what we saw with Brandon Ayuk.
I think they're going to stomp this thing out relatively early. They learned their lesson this year. I think, at least I like to think so. Because John and Kyle can be a little hard-headed and do what they want to do regardless of the outside narrative. But just based on how the Brandon Ayuk contract went, a lot of people think because Brock is a man of faith that he's going to do things in good faith.
That doesn't mean anything.
I don't know what that means either.
He's a man of faith, so of course he's going to be like, peace be with you. Just give me a little bit of money and I'm fine. No, he's a human being.
No, he wants the cheddar. No, I think they'll get it done. I think they'll get it done sooner rather than later. Absolutely. I'm looking at something maybe before the draft. Maybe we have something in April. Then again, you never know, man. Maybe Brock's Christian, his agent isn't exactly.
His agent's like, hey, that's great, man, but we're gonna make a lot of money. Yeah, show me the money. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think they're gonna get this done sooner rather than later because they want to get the ball rolling on this. I think everything they do this offseason, they're gonna try to get it done as soon as possible. as soon as the season's over, I think that's when they're going to start, as soon as they're able to, I should say, they're going to address their free agent acquisitions relatively quickly. I think they have everyone, they probably have a good list of everybody that they want to go after and who they want to bring back next year. When it comes to like Jordan Mason, I don't know if he'll be back next season because that's a guy that if he's going to hit free agency. I could see a team giving him a contract based on what he did last season. They saw that, hey, when you give this guy the ball as your primary running back, this guy can deliver. Now, granted, he got hurt, but I think based on his talents, I'd be surprised if he came back. Aaron, what do you think? Do you think Mason comes back next season, or do you think he's gone?
I think the Niners are going to just do what they do best. They're going to keep finding guys undrafted. They're going to draft guys. The Niners, when it comes to running backs, and as long as they have Bobby Turner in the building, I think the Niners will be fine in the running back room.
Yeah.
Jordan Mason is an incredible player when he's healthy, but that's been the issue with him since he's came to the team is when he's healthy, and he hasn't been healthy for his entire short career. So no, I don't see the Niners blinking twice on re-signing Elijah Mitchell, especially with Jordan Mason and Isaac Guerrero showing that they, at different points of the season, could be a bell cow back. So no, I don't see any world where the Niners are raked over the coals and are forced to re-sign Elijah Mitchell. I just think he's out the door. Who knows? Maybe he winds up in Miami because it seems to be like instead of them putting running backs out to pasture like they do horses, they just go to the Miami Dolphins and then they have a second career. So who knows?
Yeah, no, I could see him going to Miami. I could see McDaniel being like, hey, let's get this guy over here. I know he's pretty good. But I think he's gone. It would not shock me because, I mean, obviously we have Isaac Guerrero and we have Christian McCaffrey, but it would not surprise me if they found a way to retain Elijah Mitchell. It wouldn't. I mean, I know he was hurt all year, but Kyle loves that guy, and Kyle knows that he doesn't fumble. And that's one of the biggest things, that he doesn't fumble the ball. I could see Kyle saying, hey, look, you had a bad season last year because you were hurt all season. Let's bring you back on a 1-year deal, and you'll be our running back number 2, more than likely, because he's going to rely on him because he trusts him. And to me, that's not a bad choice, having Elijah Mitchell as one of the 3 running backs in the running backs room. I think someone like Patrick Taylor could stick around. Probably not. I mean, he added some value, but not all that much. But I do see Elijah Mitchell probably coming back, in my opinion. But when it comes to Brock Purdy, there's been a lot of talk about how he's not as good as some of these other quarterbacks. And we kind of briefly touched on that a second ago. But it feels like there's a lot of pushback on where he falls within like the top, let's say, 10 quarterbacks in the league. Some groups would say that he's not even a top 10 quarterback. Others would say he's a top 5 quarterback. Let's talk about where he falls within the top 10 quarterbacks in the league. And before we do any of that, we're going to take a quick break and get a word from our sponsors here on the DreArea Sports Show. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and we'll be right back. Where'd it go? Here it is.
The DreArea Sports Show is brought to you by SeatGeek.
Use promo code DreArea Sports to save $20 on your first purchase at SeatGeek.com. And we are also brought to you by BetUS. BetUS will match you up to 125% on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000 by using promo code DreArea Sports. PowerBrandSystems. If you're looking to build a website for your small business or YouTube channel, then check out PowerBrandSystems. Use promo code 300. Power to save up to $300 on your first purchase at PowerBrandSystems.
All right, so now we're back. Let's talk about this now. Aaron, where do you think Brock Purdy falls within, let's say, the top quarterbacks in the league? Do you think he's a top 10 quarterback, or do you think he's below top 10, or even above top 10, even the top 5?
I think he's in that 8 to 12 range, right? So you got your top quarterbacks are what? Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. And these are in no particular order, so people don't need to lose their mind.
Yeah. Oh!
Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Matt Stafford, right? Those are your guys. Those are those guys. They're them dudes, right? And I tweeted something. I said, I've never said Brock is elite. But I also think Brock should garner more respect for what he's accomplished in his short, almost 3-year career.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
I see him in that 8 to 12 range. I rank him over Tua. I rank him over Jordan Love. I rank him over Baker Mayfield. I rank him over Sam Darnold, of course. I mean, if you this narrative that I think you based this stream on, and that I know you want to talk about, but that whole narrative with Baldinger of like Niners should have done a swap and brought him back and sent Brock to Minnesota was just the most asinine, short-sighted, living in the moment, prisoner of the moment type thing. So yeah, Brock to me is an 8 to 12, closer to 10, uh, or closer to 8 than to 12, but right in that 8 to 12 range, just based on what he's done in his short career and the fact that he's got a 4-2 playoff record and a Super Bowl appearance, and that he left the field with the lead in the Super Bowl
Yeah.
when he was there, and it was the defense that ultimately led them. Now, did his poor season or his down season give me some questions? Yeah, like you said, and the injuries, yeah, it gives me a lot of questions. But I mean, everybody on board on the 49ers Titanic sunk this year. It wasn't just Brock. So yeah, he's in my 8 to 12 range. Um, Interesting thing that Kyle Shanahan said towards the end of the season or at the end of the season is that he wanted to do some film watching with Brock in the off season and really break some things down. So Brock, I think, is a student of the game, and for a guy that doesn't have a lot of physical attributes, the mental part of the game has to be his strongest and his processing, like you said. So I think it's cool that he'll be getting a chance to sit with Kyle and get a chance to kind of break down some things that he did wrong this year and how he can improve. But I'm a big Purdy guy. Do the Niners stay with them forever if something better comes along down the road? No, of course not. But it's so hard to land a quarterback now in this day and age in the NFL, and there's very few elite ones. Everybody's running the same race as the 49ers are. There are more teams running the same race than there are having an elite quarterback, and there's only very few of them. So, yeah, 8 to 12, closer to 10 than to 12. That's kind of the range.
I have him right at about 7. I mean, obviously, yeah, like you talked about, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Those are your top 3. And those are like the superheroes.
Yeah, they have amazing athletic skills. They're amazing. Yeah, no
they're
doubt.
amazing. And then below that, you have the other guys. I mean, I wouldn't even say Stafford is top 5. He's really fucking good. But I mean, he showed it this past weekend that he wasn't afraid of the moment because he's been there before. He's like, I'm not afraid of this shit. And while Sam Darnold, he looked terrified. I don't think Sam Darnold will be back next season. I think they're going to go with JJ McCarthy, or they're going to bring somebody else in to mentor him. I don't think it'll be Sam Darnold. I don't.
Didn't they bring in what's his name from the Giants, the Vikings?
Oh, Daniel Jones.
Yes.
Yeah, he might even stick around there, but I don't think that Sam Darnold will stick around. So you touched on Brian Balldinger. Let's go ahead and bring that up. So here is a statement from Brian Balldinger. He was asked if he would still flip Brock Purdy for Sam Darnold after seeing Sam play football these past 2 weeks. Now, granted, this was back on January 14th. Wait, what? It was posted on January 14th. Wait, is this? Maybe it was. It was towards the end of the season. He says, the only reason why I said that a couple of weeks ago, this is his rebuttal, because he said that he would flip Sam Darnold for Brock Purdy because he thought Darnold was a better quarterback, a more complete quarterback. So when they asked him again, they said, would you still do that? He said, the only reason I said that a couple of weeks ago is because we were talking about you want to give Brock $60 million, or is there another option? At the time, Sam Darnold was 14-2, and he threw 35 touchdown passes. He looked like a good option at that point. To me, that's backpedaling. That's like, come on, dude, hold on. That's not what you were saying, okay?
Wow.
He says he's been terrible these last 2 games, no questions, awful. And if you base everything off 2 games, he wouldn't have a phone call. He's had 5 clunkers this year, 5 that look like the last 2 weeks, but he's also won 14 games. I get that all the fans want to blast me. I get it. I'm fine, but the conversation was really about money. Okay, so to me, sorry. This is a bit of backpedaling. I mean, come on, dude. You said flat out you would flip Sam Darnold for Brock Purdy. And you're basing all that on, well, he's throwing for a lot of touchdowns and he's got a better record. Like that's all it takes. No. And I would never have made this trade. If you would have asked me, if I was a GM, you would ask me, hey, would you flip Sam Darnold for Brock Purdy? I'd say, fuck no. Why would I do that for? Sam Darnold's been in the league long enough to where he should have already established himself. This is his one season he's had where he somewhat established himself as a starting quarterback. But based on how he played in the playoffs, he just lost a ton of money, and he lost that confidence that you could bring him in here and be your starter and have him lead your team into the playoffs. The way he played, no way. Sam Darnold will forever be the next coming of Kirk Cousins. He will always be a guy that when you bring him in, you're looking for an option to replace him in a short amount of time. I don't see Darnold breaking out of that at all. What do you think about Baldinger's comment?
Well, it's a total backpedal. I don't know if you've ever heard the saying of like, and this is based on relationships, that person isn't the person that they were in your last conversation. They're the person they've been through their whole relationship. And I think you can equate that to Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is what he's always been. And just because, what we saw this year was not the real Sam Darnold. It was like people call it an outlier or whatever. Sam Darnold is what he is. And he turned back into the pumpkin that we've always known he was. Is it a backpedal? Absolutely. Because if you go listen to the audio on that,
very confident.
There's nothing in that audio that says, oh, it's about the money. It's about the money. That's why I said that. He's totally that I told, and I've tweeted this before. This is the hot takes world we live in. Everybody's a prisoner of the moment. Just like Brock isn't as great, maybe as some of us thought he might have been. And he's also not as bad as what he's shown at some points in this season.
Yeah.
It's always somewhere in the middle. It's the gray area. So yeah, total backpedal, which I'm not surprised.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's hear what he had to say back on December 18th when he made that comment. I just found it right now. So let's go ahead and bring that up. And let's hear exactly what Brian Balldinger had to say. And I was a fan of Baldy. I've always has been. But after this, I was like, man, I don't know. Here we go.
Baldy, I'll ask you directly, and we'll get back into the rest of the team because Green Law, Debo, there's so much to talk about. If John Lynch came to you and said, hey, Brian, I know you watch every single week, and you watch all these other quarterbacks around the league. Brock is demanding top 5 money. What do we do here? What would your advice to him be?
I'd say I'd go flip him for Sam Darnold right now.
Dude, that's not. Oh my God!
Wow.
Wow. What? Like, so Minnesota. Like, look, let's just think about Sam for a second. You sat there as a backup all year. You learned what a first-class franchise, game planning, how to build a team. Like he saw that for the first time in his life. Now you have Kevin O'Connell, who's an elite play caller, with a very, very good offense that has a real style to it, and he's flourishing. And Minnesota doesn't have to commit anything to him right now. All they're doing, I talked to the general manager 2 weeks ago, Quezzy, and just to play it out. They've got a quarterback they drafted. They don't have to give him top flight money, or they could trade him. Like, I would be having a conversation with Minnesota to see what it would take to get Sam Darnold back. He's a bigger, stronger, more athletic, I don't know, but he's bigger, stronger than what Brock is. Like, or can you play with both of them at a modicum of salary and afford both and, I don't know, have a competition? I mean, I'd be interested to see what it would take to get Sam Darnold.
Okay.
Bonta Hill's face in that says everything that we're both thinking, like, what?
Yeah, he's like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, that's
a quarterback competition? I don't think so.
That's ridiculous.
And you notice how they always go back to he's bigger and stronger.
Bigger and stronger.
Like, what's your argument other than guys are bigger than Brock? Like
hey,
Jordan Love.
But still,
what's your argument?
It sounds like somebody else we know. You know what I mean? Like, it always goes back to bigger and stronger. And I understand the argument. I understand. Look, if you have a sexy sports car that can go from 0 to 60 in like what, I don't know, super fast, 1.2, whatever. I don't know cars.
Yeah, of course.
And I wouldn't call Brock a Pinto. And you have like a Honda Accord that gets great gas mileage and can get you there. It's crazy. Now, when we go back to what he said as a rebuttal, the only reason why I said a couple weeks ago was because we're talking about you want to give Brock $60 million, or is there another option? At the time, Sam Darnold was 14-2 and threw 35 touchdown passes. He looked good. He looked like a good option at that point. He's been terrible last 2 games, no question. Awful. And if you base everything off of 2 games, he wouldn't have a phone call. He's had 5 clunkers this year, 5 that looked like the last 2 weeks, but he's also won 14 games. I get that all fans want to blast me. I'm fine, but the controversy was really about money. Where in that conversation, on that clip, did he talk about money?
He barely mentioned it. They mentioned it more than he did when they asked him the question.
Yeah.
And that's a total backpedal. But you're going to, there's some people that are standing pat on a lot of their resolute comments, like they're resolute on, Brock not. I saw a list, and I won't say who it's from. You know who I'm talking about, but there's a list, and it's like Jordan Loves, Herbert, Darnold. There's about 3 or 4 quarterbacks, mostly all the ones who struggled this weekend, who fell on their face, that they'd all take in front of Brock Purdy. And my question to all of that is, why? Why would you take them? What is the reason? What can they do that Brock can't do?
It's because of the raw talents. They got a stronger arm.
Or they're bigger.
They're bigger.
It has nothing to do with processing information. It doesn't have nothing to do with, even Brock this year. It wasn't like he was a turnover machine. What do you have? 12 interceptions? It's not bad. If I'm Baldy, I'm claiming CTE as the excuse. Did Baldy play?
I believe so. I'm not. I think he did.
So maybe Baldy is suffering from CTE. I don't know. Yeah, that's just insane, man. That is. You might need to send that to my ex.
And he was an offensive lineman in the NFL for the Dallas Cowboys, the Colts. So yeah, he definitely played.
Brian Balldinger. I used to respect him a lot, but after that take, and people are like, why? Because it's not pro 49ers. I'm like, no, it's not pro. It's like not pro common sense. Like,
it's not pro common sense. And in fact, what it is that's a Colin Cowherd type move. That's a shock jock type move where you make a statement on 95.7 The Game, which is a Bay Area radio station, sports station. You make that comment to drum up controversy. And that's all he was doing there. He was drumming up controversy for the Niners and drawing up conversations if you're a Vikings fan. Because you're like, oh, yeah, you hear what Baldy said? Yeah, we got the better quarterback. And Niner fans are just going to argue with each other. And that's all that was. And I thought, I didn't think this guy was like that, but I guess he is. And that sucks because that is a bad take. And he put his foot in his mouth because if you watched the way Darnold played this past weekend, it's laughable. That statement is fucking laughable.
Here's an interesting take is you have people saying sometimes we got to just give these guys time to develop into what they were meant to be. Unless you're Brock Purdy, then you don't have that time and you don't have that grace or that patience. It's amazing how all these narratives that are for these other guys all protect them from any type of constructive criticism. Unless it's Brock Purdy, then Brock Purdy is open to all of it. Like, he's had guys injured. So is Brock. Well, but that's not an excuse. But you just made that excuse for another quarterback. Like, he had bad coaching, or he had this, or he had that. But if you come with that same argument for Brock, what are people going to say, Andre? That you're what? Making excuses. So I just find it funny how the goalposts they're not just moving back and forth. They're moving diagonal, 90-degree angle, wherever you want to go. It's amazing. I like how Brock, every argument is valid for him.
Well, because the other guys they get the benefit of the doubt. They get they could have made that pass, but he just didn't hit him that time. If Brock misses a pass, he probably couldn't make that pass anyway.
His arm's weak.
His arm's weak. And then how many deep throws did we see where immediately everyone's like, he underthrew him. It was underthrown. If he had a little more on that, that'd be a touchdown. I mean, it's kind of like, well, oh, okay. And even Tom Brady, I mean, he was calling his game. He was like, this ball was underthrown. And, what are you going to say to Tom Brady? Oh, you're wrong. Well, I don't know about that. But everyone on social media, in media in general, that's the first thing to point out is, oh, that was underthrown. If that was a little more on it, that would have been a touchdown. Well, maybe it would. He still made the play. I mean, look, when you look at the body of work, he's been to 2 NFC title games, and he's been to a Super Bowl. And even this season, when everything was going wrong, at one point he had the most passing yards in the league. In that game against the Vikings, I thought he looked really good against the Vikings. The problem is he didn't have anybody else to really lean on. I don't think Kyle felt comfortable just giving the rock to Mason because they weren't really getting very big runs. And with Mason out there running the routes that Christian McCaffrey was supposed to run, it wasn't a big enough threat, and it wasn't a big enough distraction for opposing defenses to pay attention to him. A lot of times they would just kind of play a zone on him, or they have one guy covering him because they knew that he's probably not going to throw to JP Mason. He's not. If it's McCaffrey, all eyes are on him. And now you got to watch him, you got to watch Ayuk, and you got to watch Debo, and you got to watch Kittle. So it's like, what do I do?
Yep.
So it changes the complexity of the entire offense.
He's the only guy I know that gets punished for having weapons.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Come back to me when he doesn't have the Avengers team, and then we can talk. It's like, why is that being held against him?
Well, because
Montana had an Avengers team,
right? But Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, they don't. Josh Allen really doesn't.
No, Josh Allen really doesn't. But then those are superhuman athletes that if they weren't on that team that they are on, that team doesn't win 8 games. Josh Allen is one of those outlier super athletes who could not only run and throw. Same thing with Lamar. Those guys are not the norm. They're the exception. Brock Purdy, I just feel like he's the only guy, like in the past, Peyton Manning had a massive, massive group of players when he played for the Indianapolis Colts. He had Dallas Clark,
Marvin Harrison.
He had Marshall Faulk as a running back. Are you going to punish him for that? Are you going to punish Troy Aikman back in the day for having Elvin Harper, Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, all a great offensive line? No, it's funny. I would love to see where social media, what it would have looked like in the 90s and 80s.
Oh, I know.
Because I know there's some people who were critical of even the Montana. I know, I don't know if you say the name, but Lowell Cohn covered the 49ers in the late 80s and the 90s. And he was the same way as he was, when we were good, when we were bad. There's some people just are not going to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. But I think with Brock, I feel like the fact that they hold him having these superb weapons as some sort of penalty when you're doing some sort of scouting on him, I think it's ridiculous. We made this, me and you talked about this on the stream where I had you on my channel a couple days ago or a week ago.
Yeah.
Over 40 touchdowns were missing this year. That over 40 touchdowns between Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and Christian McCaffrey. And all those players at some time or another were not on the field this year. He's a young quarterback. He's only been in the league 3 years at this point. I just don't understand why there's all these arguments against him and how everything that he has around him is some sort of penalty when you're trying to evaluate if he's any good or not. So
because he was the last pick in the draft. If he was a top 10 draft pick and he was on this team, the same team, they would say, look how good he is. This guy's really good. But because he's Mr. Irrelevant, they go, well, he's only that good because he's surrounded by talent. And that's what made up for his lack of skill, lack of quote unquote talent.
elite
when they're
physical traits. There's
physical traits.
Like
when they're wrong, because he was able to accomplish quite a bit with the skills that he had and the players that he had. I mean, he got all the way to the fucking Super Bowl. He probably would have been there 2 years in a row.
He's underrated as a
What's up, Felix?
scrambler.
Yeah.
He's underrated as a scrambler. A lot of people don't give him credit for being a great scrambler.
I don't know about this. Josh Allen I think he's way better than Cam Newton.
Oh, Cam Newton couldn't hold Josh Allen's jock.
Yeah.
Josh is as good of a passer as he is a runner at this point in his career. But he also was an interception machine when he first came into the league. But you're right. He was drafted high from a school where, he had to grow into that position. But the Bills also suck too.
I mean, he came out of Wyoming. It wasn't like he came out of Alabama, Oklahoma, Ohio State. No, he played for the Wyoming Cowboys. And I remember when they drafted him, I have a friend of mine, and she's a huge Bills fan. And I told her, I was like, hey, you got a really good quarterback. I really liked how Josh Allen looked in college. Did I think he'd become Captain America? No, absolutely not. And when this guy reaches free agency, holy shit. I think we're looking at like an $80 to $90 million player.
Yeah. He really is that
I don't
good.
even know if he stays with Buffalo.
No, he'll stay. There's new stadium coming, Andre. There's no way in hell. No, he's staying.
But see, football's different, though.
They're going to do... Well, they're kind of poor, Buffalo, but that's...
They are poor. That's what I'm saying. Like, they might sign him and then be like, okay, well, we can't really afford anybody else. But look, they're all working under a salary cap.
Mm-hmm.
If this was like Major League Baseball, he'd be going to the Yankees. He'd be going to Boston. He'd be going to the Dodgers, a team with a big payroll and all kinds of superstars. So we'll see how that kind of plays itself out, because that's going to be nuts when that comes around. Papa J writes, one man's trash and another man's treasure. Brock may look like trash to critics, but he's a treasure to the 49ers organization. I don't think he looks like trash. I think he's had bad games this season. Definitely had bad games.
Yes.
But we're talking about a guy who is playing with receivers that literally haven't ran these routes and didn't practice these routes in the offseason, didn't practice them in OTAs, didn't practice them in preseason. You're down Brian Ayuk. You're down, at times, Deebo Samuel. Against the Chiefs, the pneumonia game. Deebo plays one snap and then has to leave the game. And now you have Brian Ayuk trying to run Deebo Samuel's routes. And you have guys like Ricky Pearsall, first game back. Did not have any preseason with these guys because he was hurt. Now you have him running these routes. You have Juwan Jennings running these routes that normally Brian Ayuk would run. So, yeah, there is a lot of miscommunications, bad route running, because this was all new to these guys. This is not what they had intended to do throughout the season. So, and I think Brock did the best that he could, because later in the season we saw that Brock was, he's a guy based on timing. He's going to throw to a spot where you should be at. And I think later on, I was talking with Johnny Dell about this, and he even pointed out too, is that Brock started to guess where these guys were going to be at, because he just didn't know where they were going to be at, because
there was definitely some miscommunication.
Yeah, they were unfamiliar with the routes. And so he started throwing it like, okay, I think he's going to be here, and intercepted or incomplete. You're like, oh my God. Just unbelievable. But like I said, I still think Brock Purdy's going to get a contract somewhere around 6 to 7 years, 50 to 55 million. That's
I think he's closer. I think he's closer to 55. Some people think he's closer to 60. None of us know. And like I've said before, it's none of our money.
It's not our money.
It's not our money. That's the one thing I don't understand about 49ers.
That's
yeah.
It's not our money. It's not our money.
There's a lot of people that are respected out there in the media, not just people that do YouTube, but people in the media.
Uh-oh. We lost Aaron. He's frozen. While Aaron unfreezes himself. Oh, here he comes. He's back.
Oh, don't tell me my internet's bothering me after having it fixed a couple days ago.
It was fine until just a second ago. But look, if you don't believe us, right? If you think, okay, these guys are being homers, they're just trying to say this shit because, they're trying to defend Brock, whatnot. Let's hear it from Fred Warner.
Yeah, let's hear it from Fred Warner. Absolutely.
Who plays with Brock Purdy? And let's hear what Fred had to say on national television on ESPN.
First of all, let me just say, Brock Purdy, I love you, man. Thank you for being my quarterback. Brock Purdy, last pick in the draft, nobody even knew who this kid was, is our scout team quarterback in 2022 when we had probably the best defense in the league. And he's in there in practice with the no-look passes, dicing our defense up every single week. And I'm back there just pissed off. I'm giving it to him. Like and he's giving it back to me with the trash talk. I mean, when you talk about a guy who has the it factor, Brock Purdy has had the it factor all along. And it was only a matter of time when he got his moment, he was going to be prepared for it coming in against Miami in 22. And, we haven't looked back since. Brock Purdy's made of the right stuff, being able to create with his legs. I think with a quarterback, the thing that's the biggest, deciding factor in elite quarterbacks or not is the processing speed. How do you process the game when bullets are flying, everything's on the line, and being able to read coverages, diagnose, deliver the football, extend plays, and Brock Purdy does it all at a high level. And so he's about to be a very rich man soon. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, obviously walked off the field with a lead in overtime in the Super Bowl, which is something no one has ever done before and lost. So that was going to be my next question. Is there any doubt in your mind that he is the 49ers franchise quarterback going forward?
Not at all. I mean, Brock Purdy, he's the man. He will be the 49ers quarterback
Wish
for a
the
very,
Super Bowl.
very, very
So.
long time.
Super Bowl is
with
the
plenty of
close
Super
to
Bowl
next year.
rings on his finger.
There you go.
What do you say to that? What do you say to what Fred Warner had to say about his boy Brock Purdy?
I mean, you could say that he's a teammate of his. What else do you expect him to say? But they've been in the battles with him. They've been to war, so quote unquote. I know that's a bad analogy to use for people that in the military, but they've been to war with him. They've been through some tough games and tough places, and won some big games with Brock Purdy as their quarterback. I heard that story about him going against being a scout team quarterback and going against the starting defense. But I've never heard it from his Fred Warner's mouth about just how good he was in tearing up that defense and how pissed off Fred was and how there was that competitive back and forth, because you don't really see that from Brock. At least we don't see it. We don't see it on the television. But there is people that say that he can talk trash with the best of them. So that's awesome. That's great. Props to Brock Purdy. He's my quarterback too. I tweeted this after the season. Brock Purdy is still my quarterback, and people gave me a lot of grief. And it's just like, you know what, man? As a fan base, I think we're spoiled, some of us, and we think that we have to have the best at every position because we're the San Francisco 49ers and we have 5 championships. Like, dude, we're a good team with a good quarterback, and I think the Niners are going to be just fine. And I think this year was an outlier. And for a guy who's usually a negative person, I think the Niners coming back strong, if healthy, in 2025. So yeah, I'm down with Fred Warner all the way, no doubt.
All the way, dude. All the fucking way. Hell yeah, dude. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Niners defensive coordinator search and an article by Sterling Bennett about what one former coach said about Kyle Shanahan's future with the 49ers. Guys, you're listening to the DreArea Sports Show on the DreArea Sports channel, and we'll be right back.
The DreArea Sports Show is brought to you by SeatGeek.
Use promo code DreArea Sports to save $20 on your first purchase at SeatGeek.com. And we are also brought to you by BetUS. BetUS will match you up to 125% on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000 by using promo code DreArea Sports. PowerBrandSystems. If you're looking to build a website for your small business or YouTube channel, then check out PowerBrandSystems. Use promo code 300. Power to save up to $300 on your first purchase at PowerBrandSystems.
Okay, guys, now that we're back, we're going to talk about the defensive coordinator search for the San Francisco 49ers. And in doing so, we have some breaking news. Let's go to that right now. Robert Saleh, the guy that everybody wants to come back as a defensive coordinator. That's the guy I want. But this came courtesy of Ian Rappaport. The Cowboys have interest in and are expected to interview former New York Jets head coach Robert Saleh for their head coaching opening, which would mark their first interview request so far. God damn it. So right when we think, okay, maybe he's going to do his interviews, not get the job and come to the Niners, now we have the Cowboys who want to interview him. And then there's buzz that the Jaguars want to sign him as he's the front runner for their head coaching position. Aaron, I think we're at a point now where it's like, I think we got to start considering somebody else. I don't know if, to me, it feels like if we bring in Robert Saleh as our defensive coordinator, next year he's gone. He's going to take off to go be a head coach elsewhere because everybody seems to want this guy. Now, am I talking down about Robert Saleh? Absolutely not. But now it seems like the Raiders want to interview him, the Jaguars, and now the Cowboys. I'm surprised the Bears haven't interviewed him yet.
Bears are a property franchise, so I don't. That doesn't surprise me at all.
It doesn't. But now that we've seen that the Cowboys want a shot at talking to Robert Saleh, does this lower the chances of us getting him, or do you think he's still going to be with the 49ers when all the dust settles?
Andre, I have no idea.
What does your gut tell you? What does your gut feeling tell you?
My gut tells me that he's going to land a head coaching position and will not be the defensive coordinator in 2025. I'm starting to get the feeling that someone like Jeff Ulbrich or Dennis Allen has a better possibility of becoming the Niners DC, which the Niners were in the camp to interview Jeff Ulbrich last year. I think they were denied, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, in a way, it's a good thing. It's a testament to the 49ers, and it's a testament to Robert Saleh if he's getting this kind of love. And, so props to him. Would I love to have him back? Yes. There is that part of me that is kind of like, we're going backwards. I've said this. I think I said it on our stream together that, there's a part of me that doesn't want us to go backward. I want us to go forward and carve out a new future with a different DC. But at the same time, if the Niners would have settled on him and he would have come back, that would have been great. But it just doesn't look like it's going to happen. So, hey, I'm just glad that they didn't keep Sorensen as their DC. So whatever happens, I think the Niners, at least this year, are putting a lot more due diligence into their DC search. So hopefully, if he can't be the guy, someone like Ulbrich or what's his name, Dennis Allen might be the guy. So we'll see. But nothing's official yet, bro. It's just it's just a report. So,
but it's not giving me much hope that they're going to be able to get this guy. And now I feel like if they do get him, he's going to be gone by next season because they'll be like, hey, thanks for the stint, but everyone wants me to go be a head coach, so I'm out of here. Now, you could argue, well, hey, and what's up, 49ers throwback? And you could argue that, hey, look, maybe you bring him in and he becomes your defensive coordinator and leads you to a Super Bowl win. And that's all that matters, right? Yeah, no, that would be awesome. But I feel like you want to get a guy that's going to be here for the long haul. And the one guy I feel like will be here for long. Like, I feel like even if you got, what's his name? Ulbrich, you brought him in, right? And if this team succeeds and this team goes to the Super Bowl,
he's going to be part of the hiring process next year.
Absolutely gone. Yeah. I think the one guy that sticks around long term is Dennis Allen. Why? Because Dennis Allen has had multiple coaching stints around the league and has not been successful at any one of them. Has not led his team to multiple playoff appearances. Has been a coach that's been fired after 1 year. So I don't see him as a guy that you're like, oh, hey, he helped lead the defense to, the Super Bowl, or they won it, or deep in the playoffs, or whatever. I don't see him as a guy that everyone's going to be coveted after like they would Robert Saleh, like they would Jeff Ulbrich, because they're younger, they're former players, they've had head coaching experience. So I think, look, whoever you get, I think he's going to go.
Man, kind of the price of success. If you remember the late 80s, when the Niners were banging out Super Bowls, they had a lot of assistants that became head coaches down there. Mike Holmgren, Dennis Green. I know at one point they had the old Seattle Seahawks coach Pete Carroll on their staff, Mike Shanahan. So I mean, it's the price of success. And when you're good, it's a copycat league, like they always, and people want to copy what works. That's just how it always is.
But you don't see that from like the Chiefs. You don't see Steve Spagnuolo leaving.
Steve Spagnuolo. I mean, some guys are okay with saying, you know what, I'm good being a position coach. I have no aspirations. Unfortunately, it's a good thing that the Niners have guys that aspire to do great things and aren't content in being just a DC. But you're right. It's like, man, I would love to have a Spags guy be on this staff for the next, 6-8 years.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to go anywhere, and then we don't have to go through this every single offseason.
Every year, it's a new one. Okay, look, you didn't tell me you were going to have a guest on the show, Aaron. So you want to introduce your guest? Who's that cat behind you?
That's Bella. She's an old girl. Old girl. I've had her since 2010. She was a year old.
What is that? Oh, it's a cat.
Yep. She's a tiny little thing. She's kind of curmudgeon-y and old, but she still likes me, so that's all that matters.
That's awesome. Strawberry reacts says, I was just about to say the same thing, Dre. About the cat in the background. Okay, so I still think Robert Saleh is their best choice. I think he'll be able to come in and make a difference much quicker than everybody else. Because he's been here before. He knows these players. He knows the system. He knows all this stuff. It's the fastest turnaround you can get by bringing in a new defensive coordinator. He would be the fastest turnaround because he already knows the system. He already knows a lot.
Get right to work. They don't have to introduce anybody to anything, and players can go right to work. Mike, let me ask you a question, even though you're the host.
No, it's fine.
You worry about the Niners being too comfortable, having a guy come back and everything's kumbaya and everything is just like, we're just going to do it just like the last time and everything's going to go back to normal. Like, I feel like you still got to put the work in. It's not just by osmosis where, you come together with something else and it just, goes exactly the same way as it does before. That's my only concern. Like, my brother's a Dolphins fan. He thinks that Saleh coming back to the Niners would be awesome and that the Niners defense would return to glory. And I agree with that, but there is a little bit to me that thinks that, like, okay, everything's kumbaya and everything's great and everything's going to go back to the same way it was. And it's like, well, the same way it was didn't exactly finish the job the first time around. So I feel like everybody needs to be a little realistic with it. But yeah, he is the best choice and he is probably the choice that a lot of 49er fans want. But everybody needs to take a step back a minute and just kind of look at it a little bit and be like, it is great, but it does bring me a little bit of trepidation about, if players are going to become too comfortable about having their guy back in the building. I don't know.
Well,
that's just my personal
opinion. Let me ask you this then. I know you asked me a question, but I'm going to respond with another question. If DeMeco Ryans were to get fired and he said, I want to come back and be the defensive coordinator, would you take him back?
Hell yeah.
Exactly. If Robert Saleh wants to come back and he was successful with a lot of the players that are still here, absolutely I want him back. Yeah. Look at what the Patriots did. Every time Josh McDaniels would leave, where would he go? He'd come back to Bill Belichick and be his offensive coordinator. Every time Matt Patricia, every time he left, he came back and found success under Bill Belichick. So there's nothing wrong with bringing these guys back. Now, Sentinel, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I would take DeMeco over Saleh as well. But the thing is that you're bringing them back because you know how to run this system and you know what to expect out of this coach. And the players know what to expect out of the coach. You bring in Dennis Allen, they all have to meet this guy. They all have to get to know this guy. They all have to know his system. He's going to say, hey, I get you guys want this, but I like to do this and I like to do this because I've been doing this for a long time. Nick Sorensen was like, hey, I got to bring us back to what we were 2 years ago, 3 years ago. How do I do that?
Right.
Well, Saleh's like, no, this is what I do. So I do the shit that you want me to do, but I also do more as well because, I've expanded my my repertoire, if you will. And so it's like, to me, it makes a lot of sense to bring back Robert Saleh. Now, based on the fact that he's getting all these fucking interviews, I don't know if they actually will get him back, but obviously I think he's still the number one choice. Now, they have not sat on their hands on this. They have continued to interview other people. I think they were planning to have an interview with Dennis Allen. They interviewed Modkins, who is a special teams assistant coach from the Detroit Lions. They also interviewed, I forgot his name. He used to be the special teams coach of the Carolina Panthers. So they are continuing to interview other coaches to fill these other vacant spots, which I think they want to fill these relatively quickly. I would even take Ryans over Kyle. I don't know about that. But still, I think it sucks that the Cowboys want to talk to him now after they supposedly couldn't negotiate with Mike McCarthy, which I don't know what everybody sees of Mike McCarthy. I think he sucks, but every team seems to want to get him. I don't know what it is. Even when he was our offensive coordinator, I didn't think he was that good. Then he went to the Packers. I was like, wow, what's going on?
Did you hear Troy Aikman talk about how he doesn't think that the 49ers or the Dallas Cowboys job is appealing because you're not really in charge when you take that job? You're essentially a puppet who does what the owner says. And this is Troy Aikman. Troy Aikman hasn't been too kind to the Cowboys in years. Anytime it talks about, things, being in charge, like, getting a head man in charge. And that's why McCarthy that's why McCarthy was there for as much as he was, because he is a yes man and he doesn't challenge the owner. I'd be interesting to see if Saleh is a yes man, if he'd be willing to take a back seat to all football operations and essentially just coach. I don't know, man. He seems like a super big alpha male who would have a hard time having somebody dictate terms to him. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, he's already been here, so I don't see there wouldn't be much dictating, because I think that Kyle Shanahan's the kind of coach that he likes to lean on his defensive coordinators to really take over that half of the game. And when he's had a coordinator in which he doesn't have to worry that much about, he's usually more successful. D'Amico Ryans, we always had success. Robert Saleh, we had success. When we had Steve Wilkes and Wilkes wanted to do something different and would kind of go against the grain, you saw them kind of have some issues throughout the season. Telling Wilkes to come out of the booth and be on the sideline because the players want that. He even told them the players want to be able to interact with their coach. They want their coach down there. They want their coach giving them immediate feedback on what he's seeing from the offense, not running over, putting on a headset and listening to Steve Wilkes go, hey, this is what you're doing wrong, or this is what you got to look at. It's just the way you receive information in the workplace. And granted, they're at work, so I'm going to call it the workplace. That dictates how you perform. And so I think they know the way Robert Saleh, how he operates, and that's the kind of person they want back in the locker room is Robert Saleh.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I wonder if Saleh would accept being in Dallas knowing that he doesn't have any real power being the coach.
I don't think he would. I don't think he would.
That's why I think with that interview, I would take that one a grain of salt, because who's going to be conducting that interview, and who's
it's Jerry Jones.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. Like I'm like I told you before, I'm just glad the season unfortunately went as bad as it needed to go in order to make some changes in it, just no doubt. Because if you end the season on a winning streak, or things look a little bit better as you close out the season, sometimes people are like, "Oh, let's just run it back." We ended on a
false
good
hope.
Yes, and I think ending as bad as they did, and I've said this to multiple people, things had to go as bad as they possibly could go for John and Kyle to be absolutely locked in on changing things. So at least Sorensen is in the DC and Schneider isn't the special teams coordinator. We went rock bottom with both of those guys. So hopefully, and I say this kind of tongue in cheek, the only way you can go is up based on how the season ended, but we'll see.
Well, and then not only that, but then you have this too, which is next year's schedule. And when you're looking at the home, and now obviously it hasn't been fully hashed out yet, but this is the teams that we're going to be facing next season.
Schedule, man.
It's a cupcake schedule. I mean, look, what are the hard teams on here? The Texans, obviously, the Buccaneers,
Rams,
Seahawks. But I mean, the Rams, Seahawks, and Cardinals, you're going to play them regardless. But the teams that you're playing out of your division, you got the Texans, the Buccaneers, and everybody else is. I think Atlanta will be a lot better next year with Michael Penix. So that's going to be a tough game. But the Panthers, the Jaguars, the Titans, the Bears, the Browns, and the Giants, those are gimme games, dude. Those are games that they have to be able to capitalize on when they go there.
Win at least 13 games next year.
Yeah. Even the Colts. I'm sorry, Anthony Richardson. That guy has he has a magnificent arm when he's throwing it downfield.
If that's all you care about,
but
right?
That's all he does. That's all he does. The Saints.
People are so caught up on that stuff.
Well, the Saints, I think, will be a good team, but I put the Saints in the same category as the Buccaneers.
Mm-hmm.
Beatable. But I think the Buccaneers have more talent than the Saints do right now.
I think the Niners can win the West next year. They just
Papa J, don't you ever say that ever again. I would bring Pete Carroll in for an interview. I don't want Pete Carroll on the team. I don't. What would you put him as? Your defensive coordinator? Your special teams coach?
Yeah, exactly. Is he willing to take us a back seat? Because I don't know. I don't think so.
Sentinel writes, don't believe the theory, Andre. This will blow your mind. In 2018, Mahomes had a super team and was the MVP, but lost in the AFC Championship game to Belichick. Belichick is Reed's kryptonite. Okay.
I'm trying to figure out.
I don't know. I was like, where did that come from? What did I say? I don't know. But yeah, I agree. But I mean, that's if he has a good team. But with this kind of schedule, this is the year when you have the Super Bowl in your own stadium in Santa Clara.
Mm-hmm.
This is the offseason. I think the Niners will give them the green light to go all in. You want to up our payroll? Here you go.
Yep.
Go get who we need. We want to win this fucking Super Bowl because, look, no matter what, you're going to make fucking money off the season because the Super Bowl is in your stadium. You're going to make a fuck ton of money.
Yep.
And so it's like, dude, you can spend a lot of money knowing that you're going to make a lot of money. So please go get whoever we need. That's why they already announced that they're going to get rid of Javon Hargrave.
Yeah. Hey, I would be totally down if they made a couple of big signings in free agency and go all in this year. I mean, talk about like a guy that we don't need whatsoever, but and maybe he's the top of his market at a position. I would be, like I told my brother, I was like, what would be a really cool signing for the Niners? Tyreek Hill. Imagine him on the Niners offense.
Well, he's not a free agent though. He's still under contract.
Right. I'm saying if somebody moved him, like,
oh my God.
Niners, yeah, like that type of, it'd be that type of move that I think if the Niners went in that direction, in this free agency period or trade market, and they are like, all right, you know what? F this. We're going to win it this year, no matter what. We have to give ourselves absolutely zero. Like they're going to, and whatever it takes, whatever signing needs to happen. And they just do essentially what they did in '94 when they revamped the whole defense. They brought in Ken Norton, Gary Plummer, Richard Dent, Deion Sanders, all these guys, Toy Cook.
And that was the first year of NFL free agency. And
salary cap.
Yeah, DeBartolo spent a fuck ton of money and was like, yo, let's go.
Yep,
and
no doubt. Yep.
But still, Tyreek's a lot of drama. I agree, Benali. But if you had Tyreek Hill on this team, but then if you do that, you got to move somebody out. You can't have Tyreek Hill with Pearsall, Jennings, Debo, and Ayuk. That's just like what no one's going to get the ball.
I'm just spitballing. I'm just saying that type of move, if you want to go all in, it would be a move in that realm where you'd be like, whoa, the Niners did what? They brought in who as a player? That would be interesting.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's move to our last topic of the day, which is an article written by Sterling Bennett, good friend of the show.
My guy.
And this one, actually, I have a quick little summary of it because I actually have the article up, which I'll read from in just a few minutes. But this is kind of what we're talking about here. So an former NFL coach had this to say about Kyle Shanahan. Kyle's going to be coaching for a long time. He's going to have another chapter in his career where he's going for 3 Super Bowls in a row. That's what a former NFL coach said. Not only that, but this former Super Bowl winning Patriots coach, that's all we know about this guy, also said, within the coaches in the league, no one thinks any less of Kyle Shanahan. The coach said, it's ludicrous to think they should get rid of him. Andy Reid had these same criticisms early in his career, and now he's clearly in the conversation for the best coach ever. Kyle Shanahan criticisms are that he lost a couple of Super Bowls. Okay, do you know how hard it is to get to the Super Bowl? That is my point exactly. That we have people out there that are saying, Kyle can't get it done. I want Super Bowls. I want Super Bowls. But it's like, do you know how hard it is to get to the Super Bowl? You know how hard it is to get to the World Series? You know how hard it is to get to the NBA Finals? Probably easier than the other two sports, but still, it takes, and especially in football, it takes a massive amount of talent and skill to get to the Super Bowl multiple times. You're in a single elimination tournament. Yep. If you lose, it's over. Yep. Baseball and other sports, it's a series. You have a chance to come back, especially if you're down in the series. So I think people need to put that into perspective, that how hard it is to get to the Super Bowl in itself. The last thing he said was, if you throw rocks at Kyle Shanahan and want him fired, he's going to have a job in about 30 seconds. Andy Reid, it was that he couldn't win the big one, and now he's on the verge of winning 3 in a row. Kyle is going to be coaching for a long time. This was from the other quote. He's going to have another chapter in his career where he's going for 3 Super Bowls in a row. Aaron, what do you think about these comments from a former Super Bowl coach of the Patriots? I don't know who that is. Could be a coordinator. Could be anybody. What do you think about these statements about Kyle Shanahan?
That's the anti-narrative thing that a lot of us fans who aren't so to react so suddenly, when the Niners lose or they have a bad season, is that they're if we're going to give the benefit of doubt to certain players who have had bad starts to their career and they've been able to turn it around, and we give them that caveat, then the same should be for Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan in his short NFL career has 2 Super Bowl appearances, man. And that's really difficult to do. And I think he's just getting started. The scary thing is that maybe it's not with the 49ers when a lot of that stuff happens. It could be with a different franchise, which is really sucky. And I don't want to think about that. But the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan is an incredible coach. There's been so much anti-Brock, anti-Kyle narrative for a couple of years now. Regardless of how successful the Niners have been, it hasn't just been when we've been struggling and having a dog water season like we had, but it's been through the course of the last couple of years. And people tweet who's better than Kyle and who they would take as coach and all this other stuff. And I think the 49ers are a real fortunate franchise, and we're fortunate as fans to have someone like Kyle, someone like John, who are steadfast on giving us a winning product and putting the best possible team on the field year to year and putting the money into it what it takes to build a good team. So yeah, I'm all for it. I think Kyle eventually is going to break through. Who knows? Maybe it's next year. Like you said, if we go all in and we give ourselves 0 outs, and we do everything with no excuses, maybe we make it next year. But yeah, this whole thing that Kyle is a choke artist and that he's never going to win the big one and blah, blah, blah. I just think that's stupid talk. And he hasn't been coaching long enough to even come to that kind of conclusion. So it could be for another franchise. We don't know, but I'm down with Kyle and I'm down with the former NFL coach and what he had to say.
Well, I was talking to a couple of guys who cover the Philadelphia Eagles, and earlier this season, about maybe mid-season, I asked them, I said, hey, do you think that they're going to fire Nick Sirianni? And they're like, oh, yeah, he's going to go. He's going to get fired. But after the season that they just had, probably not. He's probably going to stick around because they had a very successful season. And so this comes back to the old talk where I remember back in the day listening to sports talk radio, whenever your team sucks. So on the years where the Giants, the baseball Giants suck, or the Niners sucked, you know what you hear a lot of from people? You hear the statement, I'm just not really happy with the product that the NFL is putting out these days. It's just, NFL is really bad this year. Baseball is just really boring. Football, it's just been really boring. I'm not happy with the product that they put out. It's just not very competitive. But then when your team is good, you hear the opposite. Yeah. Dude, the NFL is it's as good as it's ever been. It's because your team is good and you're into every single game. So it's kind of like, dude, stop. And so when you have a season in which things don't go your way, a lot of injuries, a lot of bad plays, a lot of bad play calling sometimes as well. people go, well, he's done. We got to get him out. Get Ben Johnson in here. Kyle's got to go. I'm sick of Kyle.
Accomplished nothing in the league.
I'm sick of Kyle. Well, next year, if he's in the playoffs and we're, 14-3, everyone's going to be like, dude, this team is so, it's going to be the opposite. Granted, some other people will, stay steadfast and stay on his case, but the majority of people will say, man, I love football, dude. It's so much fun. What a great product. Niners are so good. Kyle Shanahan is a great head coach. And then the moment they lose, he's got to go. He's got to go. But next year, they have to go all in because the Super Bowl is at home. I think that's a huge thing. And not only that, but this comes courtesy of Coach Yak. The Niners have 12 draft picks in this upcoming draft. You have 12 players possibly coming to the team to replace some of those players you got to get rid of or you're going to lose.
Plus free agency.
Plus free agency.
Yep.
And if we draft like we did this past draft, then it's going to be huge. Yeah. Now, Adam Peters was supposed to be one of our big, the executive that influenced the draft heavily. Well, the first season that we didn't have him in the draft, we hit on all these players.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you?
I was one of the people that were worried that we, losing Adam Peters was going to mean.
Now, I'm not taking anything with Adam Peters. Okay. He's had a very successful stint with the Commanders. But this, come on. Last season in the draft, every draft pick hit. The only person we lost was Jared Kingston because they had to let him go.
The Niners essentially landed like 5 starters via the draft last year.
Yeah. Renardo Green, Dominic Pooney. Even Tatum.
Mustafa.
Yeah, Malik Mustafa. Thank you. Yep. Bethune was out there towards the end of the season. And I really believe that Tatum Bethune will soon replace D. Winters within a year or two. He'll be that next guy up behind probably Drake Greenlaw and Fred Warner.
Yep.
Just depends, So, but us having 12 draft picks is huge.
Yeah.
The Rams and the Seahawks only 7, the Cardinals 5. The 5 is not a lot.
The Niners could be a poverty franchise who all they care about is making money and don't care about putting a competitive team on the field. And that is not the 49ers.
It's not.
They have a head coach and a GM that are in lockstep, and they're constantly trying to make this team better. And I think a lot of people need to appreciate that based on some of the stuff that we dealt with after Harbaugh left. Mm-hmm. Nobody's saying that you have to be content with Super Bowl appearances. I hate that. I hate that weak, people are like, oh yeah, you're happy with just getting there and not winning. No, of course not. Who the hell would be okay with losing Super Bowls? But if you keep giving yourself enough opportunities to be there by putting a competitive roster on the field and bringing in the best coaches to coach those players and doing well by not, forfeiting draft picks. And the Niners are, in a way, the Niners are doing it the way you're supposed to do, which is, you draft your own players and you re-sign your own players and pay them the money they deserve. And then when guys get a little long in the tooth, to keep it going, you draft new players, you bring them in, and it's just it's like a train that just keeps going. It never stops. And the way the Niners have been doing things for the last couple of years, I feel like last year was the first draft. Or not first draft. I feel like last year's draft was such a key that it was so important that it hit based on the season that we had this past season. Like Andre, if the Niners would have missed on last year's draft and then had the season, there would be a lot of people with a lot less hope that the Niners can turn it around. So I'm excited. 12 draft picks, even if you hit on like 5 of them, if you hit on 5 of 12 and you bring in some free agents and stuff, the Niners could be right back in where they need to be next year, competing for a Super Bowl. So I'm usually a negative guy, but I'm looking forward to the Niners doing what they have to do to get back at least in the conversation to win a championship.
So Graytone 765 writes, we haven't won one in 30 years, and y'all talk like we some juggernaut.
So what are we supposed to do? Just sit here and cry?
Why don't you go be a fan of the Chicago Bears, who haven't been competitive in 30 years? Go be a fan of a team that doesn't even try It has no salary. The team sucks year in and year out.
They don't put any money into the team. They don't draft well. They don't
I
sign
know.
free agents. They're essentially here. They essentially have a franchise that makes money. At least the Niners are doing.
At least
what
they're
can.
competitive.
Yeah,
they're in the playoffs and
they're
it's
gonna
title
say,
games.
They weren't competitive this year, like because this year was a total outlier. But they're going to use it as their argument.
And what annoys me the most too, as we get ready to wrap things up, what annoys me the most too is that a lot of people will say, "Hey, look, what's his name? The coach of the Rams, McVay.
Yeah,
Sean McVay has had more successful seasons as a head coach.
He has.
Than Kyle Shanahan.
He has.
Kyle Shanahan inherited a team that was a fucking bottom dweller. His first year, his quarterback was Brian Hoyer. McVay's first year, his quarterback was Jared Goff, who he later traded for Matthew Stafford.
Yep.
You can't tell me that, dude, the Niners had to rebuild their entire franchise. And finally, I think it was year 3 or year 4 is when that's when they were able to start with Jimmy Garoppolo. And then what'd they do? They went to the fucking Super Bowl. So when you have talent around you, it's easy to be successful. Now, some would argue, well, look at Brock Purdy. That's why he was successful, because there's talent all around him. And I wouldn't argue that, yeah, talent around you does make you better. But even when you have talent around you, we've seen quarterbacks shit the bed, especially in the biggest situations, biggest stakes in games, in the playoffs, year in and year out. Something that he has not done. Brock Purdy has not done that in the playoffs. He hasn't had a game where he goes in there and throws multiple interceptions and then leads a team to a loss. No. He's had 2 runs in the playoffs.
It's funny how we get it. We have to be punished for having hope for next season, and we have to be, and we want to be thankful as fans that at least we're a fan of an organization that's going to do what it takes to get us at least in the to get into the dance next year, get us a chance to get into, the playoffs, to get back to a Super Bowl. This whole thing where even when the Niners have been good the last couple of years, there is people that are just out there with the narrative of like Brock sucks, Kyle sucks. It's always negative. It's never like there's no positive spin on it. And I don't understand that. Like, are you a fan of the team, or are you a misery merchant who just goes for clicks and engagement by putting out these super depressing anti-49er takes? Like, I don't get it. Why can't I be excited that the team's going to have 12 draft picks this year? Why can't I be excited?
I mean, imagine if you were the Bears. I'd be like, where do we go from here? I was talking to Adam Karnick. He hosts the show on IE Sports Radio, Chi-Town Weekly.
We've been hoping for 30 years, dude. There's teams that have never
look at
won
the Browns. Look at the Browns. My goodness, if you listed
then stop being a fan
all
of
the teams. It'd be
go be a fan of somewhere else. Go stop being a fan of the 49ers.
Dude, you can be a fan of whoever you want. I'll tell you that. You can be a fan of whoever you want.
My
brother realize that this is a franchise that is competitive, and that's all I could ask for.
They're going to try to put it. Yep.
Is that they're competitive and that they're trying to win. So we'll end it on that. Aaron, dude, thank you so much for coming on here. It's a lot of fun. Where can everyone find you and your content?
I am on the screen. 49ers First Takes is my YouTube channel. In a little bit of I'm in the off season now, so there's not going to be too much on the channel as far as live streams, unless I do something collaborative with like Andre or somebody. But 49ers First Takes is a YouTube channel. Very similar into what Andre does as far as like live streams, talking Niners. I only talk really Niners. So if you're coming to listen to me talk about the Warriors or the Giants, I am not an all sports channel. I am just a 49er channel. I
mean, based on my background and my whole layout here, you can't say that I only do Niners. It's like all Niners.
Yeah, it is all Niners. But no,
I
did some investigative journalism or reporting on your channel before we started talking, and I'm like, okay, he follows other sports.
Yeah. And I follow the sports for IE Sports Radio, which I broadcast that on my channel as well. I'll be live tomorrow with Tom Jensen of Sports Illustrated. We're going to be talking about the 49ers, and that's going to be on the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. But today, we talked about the San Francisco 49ers, talked about Brock Purdy's contract status, his price value, talked about Robert Saleh and the defensive coordinator search, and about Kyle Shanahan and his future based on the article published by Sterling Bennett over on heavy.com. I posted that link in the chat, so definitely check that out. And again, you guys, before you go anywhere, make sure you check out my website, which is nicotina.net. That's the home website for all three of my channels. DreArea Sports is one of them. And if you wanted to support the channel, do so by becoming a member over at nicotina.net. Membership starts as low as $1 and gives you access to commercial-free content. And it gives you access to the online community where you can go in there and chat with other 49er fans. And I post updates and articles and things on there all day, every day, all the time. So definitely check out nicotina.net and become a member to help support the channel. That's the best way to do it because I don't have to share the money with Patreon or YouTube. No, it just, your money goes directly to supporting the channel. So thank you to everyone who is a member and everyone who considers becoming a member. It's well worth it for only $1. I mean, come on. Also, we're brought to you by SeatGeek. Use promo code DreArea Sports and save up to $20 on your first purchase over at SeatGeek.com. We're also brought to you by BetUS. Use promo code DreArea Sports, and BetUS will match you up to 125% on your first two deposits up to $2,000. That's with using promo code DreArea Sports. And of course, we're brought to you by PowerBrandSystems. Use promo code 300POWER to save up to $300 on your first purchase over at PowerBrandSystems. If you need a website built for your big or small business or YouTube channel or social media account, then check out PowerBrandSystems. Use the referral link in the description below and save yourself up to $300 when using promo code 300POWER. If you want an example of the kind of website that they can put together for you, then again, check out nicotina.net. That is my website. That is my homepage for all three of my channels. And that website was designed by Power Brand Systems. All right, Aaron, that's going to do it for the show. Thank you for coming on here, dude. Once again, great stream. I hope everyone had a good time. Check out Aaron's channel. Most of you in the chat are from his channel anyway, so make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. Subscribe to my channel and smash my like button. That sounds provocative. And guys, we will see you guys next time. Peace!